Hey everyone! Before we begin, drop a comment telling us where you're listening from. And if you love real-life stories, hit subscribe and tap the bell icon. Now, let's dive into today's story. When I opened the bedroom door and saw the empty crib, I thought the painkillers were playing tricks on me. That's the first thought that crossed my mind. Not danger. Not betrayal. Not the kind of fear that turns your blood into cold river water. Just confusion. A sleepy, foggy confusion that made the room tilt slightly, as if the walls couldn't decide where they belonged. The curtains were drawn halfway, letting in a thin slice of late afternoon sun, the kind of gold that usually warms a room. But that day, it fell across the empty crib like a spotlight on a crime scene. I stood there, one hand still on the doorframe, my hospital wristband still dangling loosely from my arm. My legs felt weak, not only from the delivery but from the sudden, sharp stillness of the air around me. Where is he? I whispered to no one. My voice sounded unfamiliar, thin, strained, not the voice of a new mother coming home. The house smelled faintly of ginger tea and antiseptic cream. The TV was on in the living room, murmuring quietly. Somewhere outside, a motorcycle revved, kids shouted on the street, a dog barked twice. Life was happening. But inside this room, inside my home, my son, my newborn baby, was gone. I limped toward the crib, every step sending a dull ache across my abdomen where stitches were still fresh. My hand shook as I touched the tiny blue blanket folded neatly at the foot of the crib, the blanket I had wrapped him in at the hospital, the blanket I'd chosen months before with such care. Little white stars embroidered on soft blue cotton. It was cold. I pressed my fingers to my lips to steady my breathing. Maybe my husband moved him. Maybe he was changing him, feeding him, rocking him in the living room. Maybe. Turned. Horace! Called out. No answer. My heartbeat began to pound, slow at first. Then faster, louder, thudding against my ribs like a frightened fist trying to escape. Horace! I called again, louder this time. Still nothing. I walked, almost stumbling, out of the room. The living room was empty. The kitchen too. The bathroom door open. No baby. No husband. No sound except the low rumble of the TV and the hum of the refrigerator. A strange, icy dread settled deep in my chest. My son wasn't here. And no one was telling me why. Normal life, before everything broke. People like to say you can tell when your life is about to fall apart. I don't think that's true. Sometimes life collapses quietly. A ceiling that gives way without warning. A floor that suddenly disappears beneath your feet. Just a week before all this, everything had seemed normal. Good even. I was 32, newly married. Newly settled in a modest but cozy little house in a quiet lane off the main road. The kind of neighborhood where everyone hung their laundry outside and called each other Bai and Baji. Where kids played cricket until dusk. Where women shared spices through kitchen windows and borrowed sewing machines as easily as sugar. Our house was small but warm. 2 bedrooms. A narrow balcony crowded with potted plants. A kitchen that always smelled faintly of cumin and cardamom. And Horace, my husband, was the kind of man who spoke gently and walked softly. He wasn't loud or charming like some men. He was quiet, polite, steady. The sort of man who always handed me the last piece of naan or offered me his jacket if the evening breeze grew too cold. We met through family friends. A simple introduction. A few shy conversations. My mother had liked him instantly. Boat Sida Larka High, she'd said, a very straightforward boy. He wasn't a romantic, but he was responsible. A good provider. A man who believed in routine. Breakfast at 8, work till 5, dinner at 8:30, bed by 10. I loved the stability. After years of living in a chaotic household with siblings who fought constantly and parents who barely had time for us, I found comfort in Horace's predictability. His calm. His quietness. When I found out I was pregnant, he smiled softly. One of those small smiles that barely reached his eyes but meant something. He held my hand and said, "We'll do this together." And for the next 9 months, he did everything he could. He came to checkups. He massaged my swollen feet. He cooked simple meals when I was too nauseous to move. He even painted the nursery, a small room with pale yellow walls and a hand-me-down crib from his cousin. Visitors who came to see the baby room always complimented it. "It's peaceful," they said. And it was. A soft, warm space with a mobile of paper stars hanging above the crib. A little shelf stocked with diapers and baby lotion. A rocking chair we bought second-hand but polished till it shone. I imagined nights of holding my baby in that chair, singing softly to him when he cried. I imagined Horace standing nearby, watching us with tired, proud eyes. I imagined our new life together. Messy, sleepless, but full of love. And yet, beneath all that hope, there was one small thing. A tiny, almost invisible crack in the smooth surface of our life. Something I ignored. Something I didn't want to name. Something that, in hindsight, was the first signal flickering in the dark. It started when I was 7 months pregnant. Horace became distant. Not cruel. Not angry. Just quiet in a different way. A way that didn't feel like his usual calm. He started coming home later. Sometimes not eating dinner. Sometimes sitting outside in the car for a long minute before entering, as if gathering the courage to step inside. When I asked if everything was okay at work, he said, "Just tired." When I asked if something was bothering him, he said, "It's nothing." And every time he said nothing, his eyes shifted, downward, away, toward the table or his phone or a speck on the wall. But pregnancy does strange things to your heart. You cling harder to the people you love. You trust more, not less. 'Cause you have to. Because the life inside you needs stability, not suspicion. So I told myself he was stressed, overworked, afraid of becoming a father. And I chose comfort over confrontation. How could I have known then that this quiet distance was the beginning of the end? How could I have known that the man who held my hand through contractions would be the same man who let me walk into an empty nursery? How could I have imagined that the baby I nurtured beneath my heart would be taken from me by the person I trusted most? I didn't know. Couldn't know. Not until I came home from the hospital. And my world went silent.